Where are all the Jake Retzlaff haters today? Where are you?
Well, and I again continue to say, and I will again continue to say, he was the only choice. And Gerry Bohanon, I appreciate your story. You were never the starting quarterback of this team.
And what did they say on the broadcast? Because we've been talking about this, and they said it on the broadcast. Gerry Bohanon said to Kalani Sitake that, hey, I'll do whatever you need me to do for this team. And Jake has won the job. I'm going to support him. I'm going to be that guy. So all the people saying, oh, well, Bohanon, and he can run, and he's this amazing transfer quarterback, it was never his job.
And Gerry Bohanon, on the broadcast, they were talking about how, confirming what we said, you cannot give him a package of plays. Because if you give Gerry Bohanon a package of play, what happens? The minute that Jake throws an interception or farts loudly, we got to put Bohanon in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's exactly the right mentality to have, because what I saw to Jake Retzlaff is exactly what we expected to see. And I do think that BYU fans, the vocal minority of BYU fans, because it certainly was not all BYU fans, but the vocal minority of BYU fans that disrespected Jake Retzlaff should be ashamed of themselves. And the idea that he wouldn't develop or be the same guy that he was last year tells me that BYU fans don't take the time to understand circumstances in football. And that vocal minority specifically, if you don't understand that a year ago, Jake Retzlaff was not even physically ready to play football. Coming out of surgery, missing spring ball, missing summer workouts, never getting reps with the ones, not being familiar as he should be with the playbook. Then what happens? They throw him into game action, and you see a guy that was not 100% prepared to play football. He made mistakes. But what did we also see? Flashes of brilliance.
Yes.
Then the season ends, and he knows the offense at the end of the season, takes that education to a higher level, builds chemistry, goes through spring, goes through summer, goes through fall, and comes out and dominates. And did exactly what, thank you very much, I told you he would do. Throw the ball over the top and create better running lanes. And LJ Martin still, in my opinion, is the most important player on this offense. All of this without Lassiter on the field.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my opinion, what we saw out of BYU and what we saw to Jake Retzlaff is exactly what we needed to see. And it's why I think this team wins 7, potentially 8 games this year and takes a step forward.
Well, and I love the other thing with the offense is, I really enjoyed the play calling. I think, play calling's been a thing with BYU's offense that a lot of people have criticized. And I criticized it last year. I didn't like it. I thought it just wasn't great. And Aaron Roderick has come through, and I feel like has improved. And I feel like they've made good decisions. The stuff you're talking about Bohanon, giving Bohanon plays or not giving him plays, that was a good decision not to give him plays. A good decision to get Jake moving around the field and get him in rhythm early in the game. And I just feel like, look, the BYU, I don't think BYU is good enough to contend for the conference, obviously.
No,
however,
certainly not.
I think that when we talk about like Oklahoma State as an example, but other teams as well, you're not going to go to Lavelle and have an easy time. You're not going to go there like Oklahoma State, middle of your schedule. You're going to Provo at night. You're losing that game, in my opinion.
I would agree.
Your defense showed me not you don't have a good enough defense to hold down that offense at BYU. And I think for the Big 12's purposes as a conference, BYU being a 7 or 8 win team, along with Colorado being who we know they are, along with what we saw to Arizona, you're getting depth in the Big 12 now. And that's why I would agree. I think that the Big 12 has a real case to say, hey, we are just as good, if not better, than the Big 10.
Well, and I think it is going to be really interesting to see the Utahs, the Kansas State, Oak States, like the teams that are supposed to be the best teams in this conference are going to get tested pretty regularly. Arizona State's better than we thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt that the Kenny Dillingham effect, as I've called it on this show, his guys play hard for him. And you don't have enough depth or talent there. But then I bring that up to say at BYU, they actually have depth and talent. You have one of the best wide receiver rooms in the conference and maybe let alone the conference in the country. You're so deep at wide receiver, and look how many drops they had.
Yeah.
Look how many drops they had.
Yeah.
And you still threw a touchdown to your tight end. You got big plays over the top. JoJo Phillips, I thought, did a great job running routes over the top, which opened up the middle of the field. I think that Jake Retzlaff, like you want to talk about a quarterback, that he averaged 11.6 yards, 20 of 30. And this is the Alan Bowman conversation. 20 of 30, 11.6 yards on average, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And then you look at the fact he ran for eight times for 16 yards, including a critical first down. And you look at their balance between LJ Martin and Hinckley Rapati, who I think is an absolute battering ram in short yardage.
Yes.
I think this offense is deep enough now at the running back spot. LJ Martin's got to stay healthy. He is a dual threat running back. If Rapati and Martin stay healthy, this offense will score 30 points a game. There's just no question about it. They're going to be a handful. Are they big enough, and can they consistently get to the quarterback up front on defense? That's my biggest question. They've got great linebacker play, really good secondary play, in my opinion. It's simply going to be a question of, are they good enough to get after the quarterback, and are they big enough to stop the run against the Ollie Gordons of the world, against the better running teams in this conference? Taj Brooks, like, are you good enough to hold up against that physical style of offense that we've seen so much across this conference? The biggest question I have about Utah is Utah consistent enough on the offensive line to be the best team in this conference? Because I think there's some really good defensive lines in this league. I don't know. I don't think we know the answers to that question.
But I think if you're a BYU fan, I don't want to hear any more Retzlaff slander. I don't want to hear that hey, this team hasn't improved. That hey, like I'm done with Kalani, should be fired. I think he coming into this season there was pressure. I think the fact that that's the conversation we're having now. Hey, like, are you big enough to withstand it for the whole season? Can't like we're not talking about, hey, are you going to win 4 games? We're talking about expecting you to be bowl eligible, and excelling would be 8 wins. And I think for that alone, I just don't think we should be saying Kalani's on the hot seat. I think what we should be saying is, hey, if they win, 8 games, what does next year look like for this team? Because that's why it was so important to put Jake into the starting role, because you still have next year with
continuity.
Him. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.